Akin siya! Akin si Adrian! Akin siya! Akin siya! Akin siya! Walang sayo, Nico! Akin lang ang asawa ko!
Hello everyone, my name is Ariane and I'm from the Philippines. In this video, I will be talking about conflict styles and conflict resolution in the Filipino context. However, just a disclaimer, this may not be applicable for all the Filipinos because even though we were from the same country, we still grew up in different places because Philippines consists of 7,000 or more islands. So that may result to different cultures, norms that we grew up with. And what I will be sharing in this video is the culture that I grew up with. So conflict styles in the Philippines are heavily influenced by our culture, which is considered a high context culture. This means that Filipinos value social harmony, relationships, and group consensus over individual achievement. Because relationships are very important in Filipino culture, many Filipinos try to avoid direct confrontation and instead use indirect communication when dealing with conflict. And this is very common. We call this parinig. And what parinig means is that its concept is indirectly saying something to someone without mentioning their name directly, but we intend for them to hear it and realize that the message is actually for them. There are a lot of examples of this in the social media, especially Facebook. A lot of Filipinos are using Facebook, and we do parinig, especially in Facebook. And there are a lot of examples of this, like this. So in English, there is no exact one-word translation, but it is similar to indirect criticism, indirect complaint, passive-aggressive comment, sending a message indirectly, subtweeting in social media, talking loudly so the person can hear you, posting something on Facebook that is meant for a specific person. So instead of confronting that person directly in a private message, sometimes we post something so everybody knows that this message is for that person. But not for all the Filipinos, not for all cases. One key characteristic of conflict resolution in the Philippines is avoidance and indirectness. Filipinos often avoid direct confrontation to prevent causing shame or disrupting group unity. Instead of directly disagreeing, people may sidestep the issue, stay quiet, or use intermediaries to communicate their concerns. This is connected to the Filipino value called hiya,
Mahiya ka.
which means shame or embarrassment. Many Filipinos are afraid of embarrassing themselves or other people, so they avoid open conflict. Another important Filipino value is pakikisama, which means maintaining harmony and having smooth interpersonal relationships. Because of pakikisama, many Filipinos choose to agree publicly or remain silent to keep the peace, even if they privately disagree. This is one of the examples of negative peace. There is no war or contentions. It's not visible, but deep inside there is something wrong. This shows that in Filipino culture, maintaining the relationship is often more important than winning the argument. But not for all cases. In terms of conflict management styles, many Filipinos tend to avoid or to use avoiding, accommodating, and sometimes compromising styles. So, accommodating, avoiding, collaboration, and compromising are different conflict styles. Forgive me if I forget one of the conflict styles, but these are pretty the common styles that Filipino use: accommodating, compromising, and avoiding. Accommodation or obliging happens when a person chooses to give in to the other person's request to avoid conflict and maintain harmony. So in the Philippines, we call this paubaya.
Tama kayo, tama kayo. Ako naman eh.
Paubaya means giving in instead of fighting for it, even though you really wanted it, but you have to give it up for the sake of peace. So, however, in these changing times, there are now many programs and organizations that help resolve serious conflicts. Many Filipinos who do not have the capacity to pay for lawyers reach out to organizations, community leaders, or even public service personalities who can help them resolve their cases and problems through mediation. One famous broadcast show in the Philippines is Rafi Tulfo in Action, where two parties come together and try to settle their conflict through dialogue and mediation. In this show, both sides are given the chance to explain their side of the story, and the goal is to resolve the issue peacefully and come to an agreement. This is an example of how conflict resolution in the Philippines is often done through mediation and conversations rather than through direct legal confrontation, especially for people who cannot afford legal services. And one example of a clip I'm going to show you from Rafi Tulfo in Action is this.
Isang bagong cellphone plus SIM card, bago. Okay sa'yo, ma'am? Bagong SIM card, bagong cellphone?
Ayoko na po talaga.
Take over, sir.
Okay, bahala, be. Basta ako, kung bibigyan mo pa ako ng pagkakataon para mapatunayan ko sa iyo.
Sabi mo naman kasi para lang sa anak mo. Papayagan naman kita makita yung anak mo. Okay lang sa akin yun. Maghati tayo ng araw. Pero hindi na ako makikipagbalikan sa'yo.
Yun kasi ang sabi mo. Kaya sabi ko, alang-alang sa bata na lang.
Kaya nga,
Pero ang
sabi
purpose
mo
ko
alang-alang sa...
talaga,
Well, in my personal experience, I often resolve conflict through dialogue, but most of the time I try to avoid it at first because I don't want to make the situation a big deal. I usually try to stay quiet and give the situation time, hoping that the problem will resolve on its own. However, when the situation becomes worse or when the problem does not go away, that is the time I speak up about it and try to understand the person I am in conflict with. I try to listen first before I explain my side because for me, understanding each other is very important in resolving conflict. I also noticed that I have different conflict styles depending on who I am in conflict with. If I am in conflict with a family member, I prefer to have a dialogue because family relationships are very important to me. And I want to resolve the problem as much as possible. When I am in conflict with my partner, I usually try to avoid it at first. But when he notices that something is wrong, that is when we start talking about it and try to resolve the problem together. I do not usually open the problem immediately. I wait until the right time when we are both ready to talk. Because I swear I might explode. With my friends, I do not always talk about the problem directly. Sometimes I keep my feelings to myself, but I notice that distance starts to build up in the friendship when problems are not addressed right away. I realized that I exert time and effort in resolving conflict depending on the kind of relationship I have with the person. I also value pakikisama, which I learned from my culture, from my parents. So both of my parents grew up from different regions. My mom is from Visayas and my father is from Luzon. So that basically have influenced me when resolving a conflict because they both came from different cultures and norms and they have different norms. And even if I'm not on good terms with other people, like I said, I value pakikisama. I still try to be civil, respectful, and maintain harmony in the relationship because maintaining smooth interpersonal relationships is very important in the Filipino culture. So, in conclusion, Filipino conflict styles are strongly influenced by culture and values such as pakikisama and hiya, and smooth interpersonal relationships. Many Filipinos use avoiding, accommodating, and compromising styles to maintain harmony and protect relationships. Conflict resolution in the Philippines often involves indirect communication, mediation, respect for elders, and a focus on restoring relationships rather than winning the conflict. That's all. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you.
Thanks for watching.